tonight's story time is going to be about past life memories, karma, and karmic connections, past life connections, reoccurring dreams that are connected to past life. So the story that I will be sharing is my own, of course, true story. It's important that I share these things so that people understand that when you are obedient to Spirit and live your life in complete communion, constant communion and presence, these miraculous things happen. And it is the greatest evidence of alignment in the human experience. So that's what I'll be sharing. And so this started out as a recurring dream when I was small. And so there was a series of recurring dreams. The first, I was running through a beautiful home, and this home had fresh plank floors. And so to Sherry's mind, when I would wake up, it's a home that I would have considered old, dated. But in the dream, which really wasn't a dream at all, was that astral travel. And I'll explain at the end how you know the difference. But the floors were fresh planks. I could even smell the fresh paint. And I knew the home. I was very familiar with it. But when I would look down at the front of my body, I was a little girl. And I was wearing a flowered dress, always the same little flowered dress, and then this white linen apron over the dress. Very much like 19th century type dress, country dress. I was barefoot and heaving. My chest would be rising and falling so intensely, but I was hiding. And I knew, because of the panic that I could feel, that it wasn't fun and games like hide and go seek, that I was hiding for fear, out of fear. And so I would always run through the home on these fresh wood floors, and I would go through this swinging door that was the dining room, and I would pull the door to me and hide behind the door. And I would be standing there, breathing so hard as a little girl and looking down at my feet. And then I would let the door swing open because I could hear footsteps coming. The door would swing back to close, and I would take off running. And then I would wake up, always waking up at that same point over and over. And I had this recurring dream as a little girl. And for a long time it had stopped. Actually, a lot of my gifts completely stopped when my grandmother died. She died when I was a senior, and her and I were very, very close. But she was also the only person who validated my true and real self. She was also the only one that ever offered me unconditional love. Truly, truly love without conditions. And she would always tell me, God chose you, Sherry, to know the things that you know. Anyhow, when she passed away, I blocked a lot of my gifts purposely. I ignored them, shut them down. And you always have that power, just so you know. I mean, you have the ultimate power. So how some people are raised to have this ultimate fear around yourself, nothing can come in and infiltrate the true sacredness and sanctity of your inner temple unless you invite it in. So when I moved away from the East Coast to come to Arizona by myself, a lot of that stuff started back up, just seemingly on its own when I came to the desert, and I moved out here completely alone. So she died literally right before, on Mother's Day actually, right before I graduated high school. And so I was already 18. It was like a week after my 18th birthday, and I moved out here when I was 20. So for a period of 2 years, I would have really transient things happen to me because the house I grew up in was haunted, and I would have things happen when I was in the home alone. But really, my gifts, I completely shut them down until I moved out here. And when I moved to Arizona, I lived in an apartment. And it's when I was visited by an Aboriginal chief that my gift started again. And he told me to purposely wake early and go back to sleep, and that spirit would talk to me in dream time. And I had no idea what dream time was. This was before Google. So as I said, when you live in complete communion, constant communion with spirit, and you're obedient to spirit, when spirit speaks, you listen. So I did what I was told, dutifully set my alarm for 5 a.m. and I would go back to sleep. I would get up, usually get a glass of water and then go back to sleep. And in that short sleep, sometimes it would only be an hour, sometimes 2 hours. I felt more rested in that short sleep than I did the entire night. But it was in that time period that that recurring dream showed back up. So, as I said, there were multiple dreams. That was one. That was interesting. There was no one in the home with me, and something just fell in the other room. So, anyhow, that's the kind of occurrence that I talked about. Anyhow, the other was the same home. Now, this home is what I would describe as a plantation home, and I never had asked spirit or anything like where I was, what state I was in, or anything like that. But it was a huge plantation home, and the other recurring dream that I had from that home, there were quarters behind the house that had stables underneath. It was a long rectangular building. There were stables on the bottom level, and the top level, which you had to go up to the end of stairs, go up, and it had a rail, like a catwalk almost, and they had separate rooms. And I had this dream that I watched it burn. I was just a little girl, but I remember everyone panicking and just watching, and everyone screaming and running around. And the third recurring dream I had was saving a bird, and it was a blue jay, beautiful blue jay. Blue jays are related to the sinsonne, mockingbird. They're pretty chingon as far as birds are concerned, and for their size, they are the only birds that will actually fight hawks for nest and territory. So they're pretty intense little birds. But in this recurring dream, the bird was really limp, and I had saved the bird. And then I would wake in gasping, like, and I would wake again. So those 3 dreams were constant, and I never really knew the meaning. Like I said, the hiding dream, I knew that I wasn't playing hide and go seek. I knew there was something deeper to that, that I was being chased, I was hiding, but I didn't know quite exactly what that was for. I'm gonna take a sip. So, and anyhow, those were the recurring dreams. And so a lot of times recurring dreams are astral traveling, they're messages from spirit. So I'm going to tell you how you tell the difference. It must have these specific recipes in order for it to be considered spirit, okay? It's in full color, okay? From start to finish. It makes sense in a timeline. So like I had gotten up and ran out of the room, ran into another room, It was in sequential order. It made sense. It didn't jump all over the place. I wasn't in one building, then all of a sudden another building, or in the forest and then in the house. It doesn't jump all over. It makes sense in a timeline, sequential order, like everything's happening how it should happen. You can sense all the sensations, all the sensuality. Like I said, I could even smell the floor. I could smell the fresh paint. Every single aspect of those dreams was very sensual. I was experiencing everything, the emotional feel of it, the physical feel of it. I could feel myself running on the floorboards, all of it. It needs to have those elements in order for it to be spirit. Now, the different types of spiritual dreams are astral travel. So I am actually going to a time, place, and dimension that I have experienced, and I am going back to that experience. It can be prophetic. So I am actually experiencing something that will happen. Okay? So usually if it's prophetic, it's in your life. So that I knew was not Sherry, but I knew it familiar enough to know it was a facet of my spirit. So if you are in the dream and you are experiencing yourself, and it's not something that you have experienced before, but it has those other elements. It's in full color, it makes sense sequentially, and full-on sensual experience. It is more than likely a prophetic dream. So you are foretelling something that will happen in your experience. And so those are the elements. Now, if it's black and white in color, jumps back and forth, or like I said, it doesn't make sense sequentially, those are usually fear-based scenarios that the ego wants to practice. So they are complete ego dreams. Like a lot of times, hi Kyle, a lot of times those dreams will play out fear scenarios. So if you keep having dreams, right, like a dear friend of mine keeps having her boyfriend's cheating on her, and she's like, I keep having this dream over and over again that my boyfriend's cheating on me. I think he's cheating. I said, no, I think you have a fear that he's gonna cheat, and that's why you keep dreaming it, because it didn't feel like spirit-driven dream to me. So those are the different ways that you can tell about the dreams. So anyhow, moving forward, when you have those dreams, either you can meditate on it to figure out why you're having those dreams. So as a child, having those recurring dreams over and over again, no, I did not think to ask spirit, what is this? I just knew that it had a deeper meaning, but I didn't really dive into it. And when it started happening again in my 20s, I really had a lot going on. So again, I did not ask spirit about that. But fast forward to my 30s, I was very good friends with a hypnotherapist out of Brooklyn. And he's a beautiful friend, and I would even consider him a mentor through that period, especially of my life. And he had said straight up, I know I have a karmic debt to you, and I would like to repay that by doing hypnotherapy, regression hypnotherapy. I feel like something needs to be unlocked. Spirit keeps telling me to do this with you. So he actually flew out from New York to Arizona, and regression hypnosis, he had been doing it for more than 30 years, and he would do this once a week for 6 weeks. But with me, he said, we're going to do this so quick. He was here for 7 days, and he said, we're going to do it every single day for the first 6 days. So I agreed. So a lot of like the preliminary things, questionnaires and things like that, we did before he ever even flew out. And so what happened? I didn't even know if Larissa's on here. Okay, I'm not gonna read the comments. So anyhow, he flew out, and you always start as that closest to you, right? So started out in Sherry's timeline. The first day, I believe, if I remember correct, was just going over. Oh, she's with you? Oh, okay. Hi, Larissa. So we went over my mother and father, I believe, in that first day. The second day, it was my siblings. And then we were going back further in Sherry's timeline. Now, just so y'all know, regression hypnosis, you remember everything. And I do that also a lot with my clients. You remember everything. It feels almost like a lucid dream. And your body will answer questions, your spirit answers, because really it's your subconscious and your spirit that's connected to the practitioner. And you, being fully conscious spirit, are observing this exchange happening and also witnessing this almost movie-like thing happening, which feels like it's your body experiencing it. So it's really quite interesting. When people seek me for regression hypnosis, I know that it's usually not in integrity. People are always looking to try to find royal bloodlines in their spirit. It's almost laughable. But what always shows up, what spirit will show you, is more of what you need to heal. What are the facets that you bring into this life? What facets are you bringing into the current inception that maybe there's karma around or repeating patterns around based in that karma? And so you have to be very aware of those things showing up. So like I said, recurring dreams is a really good indicator. Phobias is a really good indicator of past life karma. So to just be more aware of those things and how they play out in your life. So it was the third day of doing regression with my friend, Peter Victor, if you want to look him up. Amazing. He's retired now. Beautiful. I remember right away he had me counting back, and I right away started experiencing that dream. And it was so bizarre because I was even more fully in it than I had been in the dream. So in the dream, I could tell that I could feel the fear of it, feel that I wasn't playing hide and go seek, that it was far more serious than what I was experiencing. But in the regression hypnosis, you are so fully invested in that facet of your spirit that I started having a full-on panic attack. Now, Sherry has never experienced anxiety, but I had in that moment. I actually had to be taken out of hypnosis 4 times and put back because the panic attack was so severe I couldn't breathe. And he had to keep reminding me that I was safe, because even though and I had learned her name was Emily, even though Emily was a facet of Sherry's spirit, Sherry was the one doing the speaking and translating this information so that we could figure out exactly what was happening. And yes, sister, it was really powerful. So I was full on crying, panicking, I couldn't breathe. So what had happened, it picked up from where the dream had left off. And I was running. I ran straight out through the front door of the house, and there was these beautiful white columns, like I said, plantation home. And so I ran out through the grass into this dirt path that went into the forest, and I was running through the forest, and I looked back, and it was my father and 4 men. And that is the point that I kept stopping, and he had to take me out of hypnosis. It was my father and 4 other men. And I was in a full-on panic. So he stopped. The 4th time that he was able to get me back, he's like, you have to stop. Stop now and just talk to me. Talk to me where you're at. We're freezing this experience. We're freezing it in time. Nothing is happening. I need to talk to you, Emily. How old are you? That's when I found out I was 7. And what is going on? My dad's gonna hurt me. Why is your dad going to hurt you? Because Juliana told on me. Well, what did Juliana say? She told because I fixed a bird. You fixed a bird? What did you do to the bird? I made it better. And so I'm sharing this with the hypnotherapist and telling him, my name is Emily. And he says, where do you live? And I said, in the White House. And he says, do you know where the White House is? And I said, no. And so I didn't know the state that it was in at that time. I didn't know my last name. I didn't know my address. I just knew it was the White House. My name was Emily, and that I was 7 years old. And that my friend Juliana had told on me, and I was in huge trouble, that my dad was going to hurt me. And so he asked me right away, where is your mother? And I said, she's hiding. And so I remember him asking, why is she hiding? And I said, because she knows. She knows what I can do. And he says, well, what can you do? And I said, fix things. And he says, how does she know? And I said, because I fixed her tummy. So I had a full-on memory of helping my own mother when she was sick. And so she knew, and she was very distraught that this was happening to me. And so she hid because she couldn't be part of it, and she couldn't be witness to it. So he then said, and I can even feel that now going back into that memory, that's wild. So he then said, okay, we're going to go and you're going to tell me what happened next. And I looked at my father and I was crying, like full on heaving. And I turned to run again. And the man that was standing next to my father, so it was to my father's left, grabbed the shoulder of my dress and it tore and I fell. When I fell face first into the leaves, and I experienced that all over again. The leaves going into my mouth, the dry leaves going into my nose, how all of that was sticking to my face because of my tears and the drool from my mouth. And then I felt 4 hits on the back of my head, and fading. Like the first one was the one that hurt, and after that the other hits didn't hurt. They were more like thuds. And I remember looking sideways, and I was at floor level of the forest, and just watching the leaves moving with my breath, because my breath steadily got calmer and calmer. And they walked away, and I didn't die right away. So the hypnotherapist then asked me, did you cross over right away? And I said, no, but my grandmother came to get me, and that's when I crossed over. So Emily's grandmother had come for her, and it was then that I crossed over. So I didn't stay earthbound for a long time. so that was the recurring dream. I finally was able to realize that my own father had killed me because of my gifts, which definitely was karmic, right? That's what I teach when I do my teaching, is considered the witch wound. The witch wound is the soul memory of being destroyed many lives because of your gifts. And so I do have memories of being put on the pyre, of being stabbed multiple times actually, but this, my own father had killed me. And yeah, just DM me. So when that happened, it was such a healing release for me to realize that that was a huge facet of Sherry's fear around playing small and hiding. At the time, I was still a medical practitioner in medicine, so of course, deeply in hiding. The only people that knew that I was psychic and I could do things, special things with my energy, are those people closest to me. I have known since I was a little girl that this is my last life, so I knew also that I was collecting karmic debts in this life. I was tying up loose ends, clearing a lot of those loose strands and calling back soul fragments, and I've known that since I was a very young girl. But this one was a very intense past life dream, and so I knew the year. It was 1862. So I knew Emily was born in 1855. She was killed by her own father in 1862. I still didn't know the state or anything. So fast forward now to my 40s, and I am now public and out in the open about who I am and what I do for a living. And there was a new yoga instructor, and she was substituting. Now, her and I never really crossed paths, so this is what's interesting. Her and I really hadn't crossed paths, and she was asked if she could be a substitute and teach with me. And so she showed up, and I right away recognized that she had been my mother before. And so I looked at her, I said, you've been my mother. And she said, what? And I was like, nothing. And so I just kind of like just passed it off. It wasn't anything. That happens to me a lot. Pretty much every relationship I've ever had is karmic. I have past life literally with everyone. And that's part of what I had just forementioned. But I knew, and I didn't know the details of it yet, but I knew that it was super important and that the karmic debt was hers. Because when someone comes into your life and they are constantly overgiving to you, or doting, or just over nurturing, is usually a really good indicator too of the karmic debt, right? So even if you feel that way towards someone, like someone you always feel like, I need to do this for them, constantly feeling like you need to do something for them, do more for them, that's a really good indicator of karmic debt and some kind of karmic connection, past life connection, where possibly you owe. Like I said, that hypnotherapist who said he really felt spirit was driving him to do this with me. And so after I revealed that to him, it was interesting because he said out of 30 plus years, he had never had anyone regress themselves. And I have always known that when I do my regression sessions with my clients, they do regress themselves. So it's interesting, here he's formally trained as a hypnotherapist, and they force people into these things. Whereas as a psychic, when I do these sessions, I basically create a safe container for my clients to do it themselves. And it's very powerful to witness. And I am very honored to be trusted to hold space for those sessions. And it is usually cathartic, because what shows up is what spirit knows you need to heal. So things that are unlocked, like repeating patterns, like, why in this life do I keep having these type of experiences? Or why do I have this phobia? Why am I afraid of water? Or why am I afraid of being alone? Or this is my biggest fear. Why is that? And then, like, I usually try to do at least 3, depending on how long we spend in each timeline. Try to do at least 3 past lives. If it goes really long, like I had one where she stayed in that life so long, but kept wanting to go back into different eras in that particular life, which was interesting. And so she would jump all over in that one particular life, but it showed her so much soul growth in that one past life. It was cathartic and teaching for her in this life to say, you know what, these are lessons, these are soul lessons that I already got. I don't need them again in this life. And that's why I'm like looping this stuff, and why it feels like played out, because I've already done it. So those are valuable as well. Anyhow, so fast forward to this one yoga instructor. I knew she kept gifting me like really valuable gifts too. And I was like, this is just odd. So anyway, we go to have a Christmas party at her house, and she starts talking about how they're going to have this and that, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have genuine moonshine. And I said, oh no. I said, I won't be even trying that. She goes, why not? And I said, moonshine is my kryptonite. And so I shared this story with her about how when I was 14, my neighbor that lived across the way was from Tennessee. And, you know, 14-year-olds, you're playing like truth or dare, right? And so the dare was to take a swig of moonshine, and I literally fell flat on my face. And so I was like, no, I'm not interested. And just so you know, I grew up in a home where we would have like wine with meals, or like stout with a meal. So it's not like I drank a whole glass of moonshine or anything, but I just knew, I was like, no, there's something about that. I'm not supposed to touch it. I'm not touching it. So anyway, we get to the Christmas party. It was nice. There was a bonfire. We did those beautiful oriental lamps, where those paper lanterns, beautiful. It was very pretty. Anyhow, they start passing around the moonshine, and she's like, are you sure? Because it tastes really good. It's like, it's my husband's family makes it. It's made with peaches. And I smelled it, and I was like, oh my God, it really does smell like peaches. So I just kind of let it touch the tip of my tongue, and I was like, wow, it actually tastes like peaches. That's pretty cool. And I just passed it along. And yeah, my girl Cindy was there. And so the second time it came around, I took a little bit of a bigger sip. And it was interesting because my daughter literally had just come up before the cup had come to me. And she's like, Mom, can I have some pie? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. And so this was a few years ago. She's 18 now, so I don't know what she was, like 15 maybe? I don't know. How long ago was that, Cindy? Like 3 years ago? So anyhow, she went to go get pie. I took a sip, and she said, I literally turned around with my plate with pie, and I saw your head flop back. And so my daughter's version of that is, I knew you weren't in your body. And so both of my kids are very psychic, by the way, okay? So I ended up having to be carried and driven home, and my son, daughter, and Cindy took me out of Cindy's car and put me in the house. Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago. And so brought me into the house. I woke up I guess it was just hours later, and on my floor, and I was so confused. I didn't know where I was, but I was like, wow. But I wasn't hungover. I wasn't drunk. I was just a little like, what happened? So the homeowner, Christine, actually texted me, and she's like, I don't know if you believe in this or not, but something really weird happened, and I hope you're okay. I'm just texting to check up on you. But when you took that last sip and your head fell back, I went over and whispered in your ear, Sherry, stay with me, because I knew you weren't in your body anymore. And when I looked up, I saw a little girl running towards the tree line, and she looked scared because they had a big property. And she said, and I knew the little girl was you. So I don't know what that means. And so literally I texted her and I said, can we talk? Can I call you? And she's like, of course. So I called her. I said, of course I believe in this. And I said, look, I'm going to tell you something. That was she wearing a flowered dress? And did it have a linen apron over it? And she's like, yes. And I said, yes, that was me. Her name is Emily. And she said she looked back when I said, Sherry, stay with me. Like literally she looked back and then she just kept running like she was scared. And I knew it was you. Like I had a feeling. And I said, so I started to describe to her that past life that I had and what I knew of it. That I grew up, I said, it feels like the Deep South. It was in this beautiful plantation home. And I said, so that's interesting. I don't know why that would show up at your house. And I said, but now I want to go into meditation and figure that out. And she goes, my husband grew up in a house like that. And I was like, don't say anything more. I want to go into meditation and I'll call you back. So I hung up with her. I went into meditation and I got a lot. I got that it was Alabama, that my father actually had first tried to kill me with moonshine. So the religion that we were in was very strict. And because I had healed a bird, they believed me to be a witch. And they really threatened and pressed my father to get rid of me, or else they would do it. So the kindest way that he could think of to get rid of his daughter, because he was really conflicted about it, was to poison me. And they were moonshiners. So he thought to give that to me, but it didn't kill me. It just made me really ill, like super ill. But it did not kill me. So that is why they ended up chasing me down into the forest. But what I was shown in that meditation is that my father was not one of the hits. My father actually didn't hit me at all. It was the other men. So my father hadn't killed me. My father had witnessed me be killed, and he witnessed that and walked away, knowing that I was not dead. So yes, that's horrific. But it changed things. I also got in that meditation that my father's wife, my mother, that was hiding, actually committed suicide less than a week after I was killed in the forest. So this was all this information that was given to me. So I called her back and I said, this is some really heavy stuff, so can I share it with you? And she said, sure. She gave me permission. And so I shared it with her about all of that, how the religion pressed him to hurt me, but he tried to poison me first with moonshine and it didn't work. And she said, oh my God. She said he grew up in a house like that, in a plantation home, just like you said. His family was moonshiners. And I said, you know what? I said, I know that the quarters, which were probably historically used as slave quarters, I said it was, the bottom floor was horse stables, the top floor was rooms burned down when I was a little girl. So between the year 1855 and 1862, that building burned down on the property. So I don't know if that's something that you can verify with him to see if it's actually the same house or anything, but that would be really cool to find out. So I started sharing more with her, and she said, look, I'm really tripping out right now because when that happened to you, he ran over, and literally I just had met her husband that night. I had never met him prior to that night. He came over and got really pissed off, asking who had given me the cup, that he heard me say I didn't want it. Why would they give it to me anyway? That was irresponsible, blah, blah, blah. That he was like really pissed off, but not in a way how a man would protect a woman, but more like how a father would protect a child, right? And she said, I just thought it was so weird. Like he got so angry. And she said, this is wild. And I'm going to admit something else to you, that she basically had been hospitalized multiple times for suicide, and that their son had just recently come out and admitted that he was homosexual. And so her husband had even said, I don't care what the church says, I don't care what anybody says, he's my son and I will support him. So as it turns out, this couple, who are not even from Yuma, who just happened to move here temporarily because they've already left again, we're here to tie up some karmic loose ends with a New Yorker that is also misplaced in the desert temporarily. But it's very powerful because, yes, those slave quarters did burn down on his property. He couldn't track down the exact years, but they actually rebuilt it exactly like the originals. So the stables and the rooms are still on that property. The plantation home is still there, standing in Alabama. Very powerful experience that I had with this couple. And he is definitely redeeming his karma, right? Because now he is actually supporting his son, who is rejected by the religion and the church, and he's supporting his child. And she is reliving that karma too, that darkness that drives people to want to destroy their human. But just so y'all know, like if you ever even have an inkling about suicide, when you commit suicide, you come right back. You don't get to decompress from the human experience. You don't get to go over the lessons that you learned and plan shit. You have to come right back. So basically you're coming through another birth canal into the same exact experiences, different earth suits. So literally it would be like playing 4 hours of Monopoly, someone taking all your shit and saying start it, go again, but we're all still gonna have our property and shit. And so it's dumb. It's just not wise. You might as well just keep going. And I have had a past life that I committed suicide because I had always known that psychically. And when I got to live that for myself, I was like, wow. So it confirmed it for me. So that was so powerful for me to see how intricate the matrix of the human experience is, that no matter where you're birthed, you will have the experiences that your soul needs to have. There's nothing you can do to thwart that. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. You will be having the experiences that your soul needs to have in order to heal facets of the spirit, to call back those soul fragments, to have those experiences that you need to have. So for me, it was the redeeming that here, my father really didn't kill me, but that he's redeeming himself in this life for his son. And even though growing up in the same exact environment and experiences and the same kind of brainwashing and that entitlement of the white male energy, and he's now like redeeming himself, that is that gives me such great hope for humanity. Like, you have, man, it's such a beautiful thing to be able to experience that. And so that's part of why I wanted to share that story, that the recurring dreams that I had as a child and in my 20s, and then in regression hypnosis in my 30s, then got to fully play out in my 40s, meeting this couple, this random couple. Like, it's just bizarre to have that experience too. And it's really powerful. So, does anyone have any questions about that? About past life, about recurring dreams, about any of that? I'm drinking my tea. Beautiful hearts to you too, Caitlin. Beautiful sister. And thank you, Jessica. No questions? I'll be sharing more stories. Like I said, it won't be every day, but I feel Spirit's been telling me to do this, oversharing my card spreads, because, you know, I was sharing my card spreads really because I was playing it safe, playing small, and really showing people, I love you too, Cindy. Really showing people, like, I'm constantly doing the work. I'm constantly holding myself accountable. I am in constant communion with Spirit. I am obedient to Spirit. And this is why I have these experiences. But I was showing you the other end. Like, this is how you do the shadow work. This is how you do this. But unfortunately, some people erroneously would talk smack about me behind my back, that, you know, maybe they thought I was a hot mess. And it's like, no, I'm actually being transparent and super generous with you to show you those parts of myself, to show you how to do the work. Like, literally, without holding your hand and doing the work for you, I'm showing you how I do it. So hopefully you'll be inspired to fucking hold yourself accountable or be transparent. I don't know. But really, Spirit's like, no, you know what, Sherry? You need to start sharing the sublime experiences that you have, like the really unique and divine experiences that you have, the phenomenal shit that happens to you that doesn't happen to normal people is what I need to start sharing, because this is where the goods are, y'all. Like, this is the payoff, to have experiences with other dimensional beings, and to be able to jump timelines and to see other facets of yourself. But also the greatest gift of that, the greatest gift of being able to jump timelines, my own timelines and everyone else's timelines, is that everything's connected and everything's right here. You don't fucking go anywhere. It's all right here. And I do that through my heart. You can't do it through the head. Like, so many people sit in meditation, they're like, oh, I'm gonna concentrate, I'm gonna blow open my third eye, and it's not there. You're like, you're missing it. It's in the heart. You have to have a strong foundation if you want to have a really phenomenal skyscraper, right? So like the root chakra is your foundation. The crown and above is your skyscraper, but you can only do that by really integrating your highest spiritual aspects into those deeper aspects. I had to uncover that witch wound, that fear, that deep fear in Sherry that was actually Emily's reliving as Sherry, in order for me to open up even more. And so it's really powerful. Jessica says, the fact that you are from the town where my parents met in New York must be more than a coincidence. Exactly. I also agree with that, Jessica, for sure. I mean, it's not even a big place. Johnson City, Binghamton, it's not a really big place. Where I grew up is way bigger than where I was born. But and then to come out here literally on a whim, How I ended up in Arizona is pretty interesting. But I literally was like, there. Picked a place off of the wall and transferred like that. And came out here, I always say, with a Schwinn and a box of shit. And I didn't know anybody out here. And so that in itself is a huge feat, but I knew I needed to be here. So, phenomenal. But I trust Spirit, and I am obedient to Spirit, and I do what I'm told when Spirit tells me to do something. So, any questions? Because if not, I'm going to close this out. Thank you all for sharing your most valuable commodity with me. Your time, your energy. I so appreciate you. I truly do. Thank you. And I am sorry for any misalignment that I may have caused. Please forgive me. Thank you for this opportunity. I love you, I love you, I love you.